Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that a lot. I also love it when people leave a comment, so if you have a suggestion for a video, or if you have a question, or you just want to say hi, those things are all great, and I love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment. So today, I thought I would address a common question I get, and the question is, can I get by with a handheld rotary tool, or do I have to invest in a Flexshaft motorized rotary tool where it hangs from the ceiling with a big motor? And the question is a little more nuanced than a yes or no question, so we'll spend a little time talking about what you can do and what you can't do with these various tools. Before we do that, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. I am happy to announce I have 3 new patrons between the last video and this video. So I wanted to thank Greg and Anita and Marty for signing up. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate your support. And I hope that you have as nice a time interacting with those people who are already over there as I do all the time. It's a great group of people with lots of knowledge who are super friendly. So make sure to introduce yourself to them when you get the chance. And thanks again for signing up. I appreciate your support. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 21,300. It's getting hard to remember what the numbers are now, but that is amazing, and I really appreciate all of the kind words and support that I get from all of you. I love that I have so many subscribers now. I never thought I would have that many, and it's pretty amazing, so thanks for that. I really like it when people tell me that that they're finding some use out of these. It makes me continue going because it's great to know that people are actually getting something from them. So thanks for those comments. That's really moving sometimes. I also do appreciate the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks and the people who buy my merch or my ebooks. Those things really help with my financial situation. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. All right. Well, let's get started on talking about rotary tools. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get at my merch store. The more recent ones, I put some useful charts on the back. This particular one has a wire gauge to inches to millimeter conversion table, and I find that pretty useful. There's some other ones with different stuff on it, and I think if you visit the merch store, you'll see some variations that are useful. I like these because it allows me to sketch up my designs a little better than I probably would without this little dot matrix that's in the background, because drawing is not my primary skill, but I do certainly find it useful when I'm coming up with ideas for projects. So I didn't used to do that, but it's really been a game changer for me. So today we're not really going to be looking at sketches or materials lists or anything. We're going to talk about rotary tools. So when I first started doing this, I was pretty young. It was in the 90s. I was fresh out of college, and I was a teacher, so I didn't have a huge amount of disposable income. And so getting set up with tools and everything, I really couldn't afford to buy myself a Fordham tool or one of those great big powerful motorized flex shaft tools. And I already had a Dremel. It was an adjustable speed Dremel, plug-in sort, and I found it to be relatively effective in most situations. So I've actually gone through, I think, at least three of those I've worn out. The first one I got 15 years out of, I think, before it started to die on me, but they do last for a long time. So let's talk about some of the things you can do and can't do with a cheap handheld rotary tool. But before we go any further, I do want to say if you're going to get one of these, they can be useful for some things, but do not get a cordless one. At least when I first got a cordless one a few years back, it really didn't have the power to do much, and the battery died really quickly. So I would recommend getting a plug-in sort. But here's the less than yes or no answer on it. I want to talk about some different things that you can do. I find it nice to have the kind that has an adjustable speed on it. This one goes from 5,000 RPMs to 3,500 or 35,000 RPMs. So it goes pretty fast, and that is useful in some cases, especially when you're trying to remove material fast. And here's a few things that I use my Dremel for all the time. Oftentimes when you're soldering things, you'll have a little bit of excess solder mess next to the place where you were trying to connect things together. And a Dremel is a super effective way for getting rid of those little things if you're using an abrasive silicone wheel. So I have the two types that I use the most. I use these knife edge wheels, and I get these ones from Rio. And they are the coarsest version, and let's see, what are they? These ones are 22 millimeters by 4 millimeters. And I go through these a lot, so I order a bunch of these at a time because I wear them out. I'm not a big sander. I don't sand a lot of stuff unless I absolutely can't think of another way to do it. And so this is a great way to go from filing to do some pre-polishing, get rid of scratches, excess solder, things like that. And I find that super useful. The other types that I use that are silicone polishing wheels are the blue versions, which are the fine grade. So it's like if this is 120 grit sandpaper, this would be like more like 500 grit sandpaper. So it's more of a polishing thing than a grinding thing. You can grind away a lot of material with these things. So, and they fit on these little mandrels with a screw coming through the top. So they eventually wear down, and then you can use them for other purposes. But when they're like this, you can get right in solder joints and everything and smooth them out pretty nicely. So I use that for that a lot. So I've always polished the insides of my rings using various bits on the Dremel, and I find that to be satisfactory for that particular operation. Like I said, I don't do a lot of sanding, and so oftentimes there's some file marks left over. I do a lot of sculpting with my file, and so smoothing things out with the Dremel and those white bits is really handy, and you certainly don't have to have an expensive Flexshaft to do that with that. So there's various kinds of burrs you can put into these. I'll show you a couple of different kinds. I covered this in a thing about rotary tool bits a while back. If you want to see that video, it's up here. The focus here is really, can you get by with these as your only rotary tool versus having this as an accessory tool. These ones are diamond bits, and those are great for smoothing out areas where it's hard to get a file into. And these are ball burrs, they have little blades going all the way around them, and they remove material really quickly. And one of the things that I use these for a lot is if I'm okay, this is not a ring that I made. This is actually a ring that periodically my mom buys things and then gives them to me after she doesn't like them, and I pull the stones out. But this one, you can see it's got a bunch of bezels soldered down on top of a piece of sheet, and then the excess sheet was trimmed off around the outside. And getting in little spaces where you can't get with the cutters with a ball burr is a great way to remove material really quickly in between those spots, in between the balls and things like that. You can just grind it away pretty quickly. The trade-off is that if you're not careful, it can catch on things and jump a little bit and scratch stuff, so you have to really have good control of it and go at a speed that works and doesn't catch a lot of stuff. So that's what I use ball burrs for a lot. And those work fine in a handheld rotary tool. Bezels, as a beginner, oftentimes, I remember when I first started, my bezels were pretty rough looking, and especially the outsides of them would get pretty beat up by the time I went to set the stone, and getting them smoothed out and everything was hard on the polishing wheel because there were so many scratches and dings and stuff like that. Now that gets better as you get more experienced and you don't have near as many problems with that. But at first, that's a great thing to use those silicone polishing wheels for too, is to clean up the outside of your bezel, because from teaching people over the years, I think that's a pretty common occurrence for most beginners, is their bezels are a little bit rough looking. So that's a great way to do that. And those and a handheld rotary tool is certainly powerful enough to do that kind of stuff. It can be used either with burrs or with those kind of grinding wheels like that to texture things. You can cut into metal with it so well with those knife edge things. You can actually create textures with them, and I do that occasionally when I'm trying to create a unique look or something. This is something that I'm not terribly good at, but you can do rudimentary engraving, like if you wanted to engrave a pattern on there. If you stenciled it onto a piece of metal and used a little tiny ball burr and have a steady hand, you can actually kind of engrave with it, and that's certainly powerful enough to do that. The big disadvantage with a handheld rotary tool is the motor is not super powerful, and so when you're really getting aggressive using it, a lot of times it'll bog down on you. It won't have the oomph to really do what you want. So that's a problem with them. So those are some things that you can do with them. I think they're handy for a lot of that kind of stuff. And there's probably a number of things I'm not thinking of right at the moment that are also that you can do with them. A few things that you can't do with them, and this is why the answer isn't really a yes or no answer, because certain things you can't really do with them. And the biggest thing is they just don't have the power to provide a good polish on things. People oftentimes, to save the expense of getting a polishing machine, ask me if they can just use their handheld rotary tool, and the answer is generally no. And the reason for that is it won't remove fire scale or fire stain very easily. It just doesn't have the horsepower to do that. The Flexshaft types with the larger motors, though, do have a lot of horsepower, and those generally you can actually use to polish with. So it's not ideal, but you can get by in a pinch with those. It's always best to have a big polishing machine. Another thing that surprised me, and it makes sense once I realized it, when you're drilling tiny holes with these little delicate drill bits, you need to have a certain amount of control with your piece, otherwise you constantly are breaking those little bits. And I found that out the hard way when I first started to drill little holes with my using my Dremel. And I don't know how many of those tiny bits I broke. Before I made the connection in my head, what I realized was they're going far too fast to control them effectively. And so you slightly change your angle or something, or you push a little bit too hard while it's spinning that fast, and it's pretty easy for those to fracture. And then you got a broken bit and you have to find another one that's the same size. So that's not ideal. The big problem with the rotary tools is there's a lower limit on how slow it can go most of the time. Mine only goes down to 5,000 RPMs, and that's really too fast for a little tiny bit probably. You need to go slower to have more control. A lot of the big rotary tools with flex shafts have a foot pedal to control the speed, so you can pretty effectively run it at whatever speed you want and save yourself breaking a lot of bits. So I actually, since I don't have a functioning Fordham tool right now, I have an old one that doesn't work very well. I usually use my portable drill actually to drill with, because it goes really slow if you just barely pull the trigger on, and so I get a lot more control with that for drilling than I do with my Dremel. So the final thing I'd say about those is there is a feature on Flexshaft tools, especially Fordham's. You can get a handpiece for it that provides a hammering action, and it's useful for hammering down difficult bezels to force down, especially if you're using like sterling silver instead of fine silver for the bezel. It has a back and forth motion and creates a little hammering effect, and I don't believe you can get that kind of a thing for a handheld rotary tool. So correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments that I'm wrong if I'm wrong about that, but I think those aren't available. So to kind of summarize, yes, you can get by with this as long as you have a polishing machine. Is it preferable to have a flex shaft rotary tool? Probably, because it can do a lot more than a handheld rotary tool. So if you're on a limited budget and just getting started, you probably can get by with a Dremel or some similar handheld tool. But make a lot of jewelry, save up some pennies, and then buy yourself a nicer one. So when I looked at the prices of Fordham tools, they varied anywhere from $250 up to, I don't know, $600 or $700 depending upon the setup that you get. And last I checked on Dremel sorts of handheld tools, they're usually under $100. So keep that in mind when you're pricing out your setup when you get started. And hopefully you found this to be a useful video with a little bit of information you can use. So, all right, well, that was kind of the pros and cons of using just a handheld rotary tool versus a Flexshaft kind of more powerful one. I hope that you found some useful information here. And if you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And I would love it also if you went back to my main channel page and checked out some of the other videos that I have. I do 3 per week. And I have been doing that for about almost 3.5 years now. So I've accumulated, last I looked, was 490 videos. So there's a lot of content over there. And I'm almost positive you can find some other useful stuff, especially if you're first getting into this, or if you're someone with more experience who just wants to find some project ideas. There's a ton of different project ideas. So check those out, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the video description down below. There's some important links. You can check out my Patreon if you want to find out more about that community. There's a link to that. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks that I have, or some other merch. There's some cups and t-shirts, things like that as well. So, and finally, there's a link to my ebooks. If you want to get 2024s, it has a page for each of the videos I did last year, including extra information about them. A materials list, a difficulty rating, pictures of the sketch, pictures of the final product, extra information I thought about the project itself. Did I learn something by making that? Did I figure out a better way to do it as I was doing it, or did I realize there was an easier way to do it? Pretty frequently I do find things like that. So it's a good, useful source of information and a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips. And it's a great way to support my channel. So if you're interested, get yourself one of those. There's 2 different versions. There's 2024s and 2023s. There's even a package discount if you get them both at the same time. So check out that link. And thanks again for coming today. Thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.